Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Year of Underrated Stephen King podcast. I am your hostess with the mostest, Kim C., who by day teaches university fiction workshop, and by night I chip away at a one-woman Stephen King podcast where I endeavor to break down, highlight, and celebrate the masterful writing of the greatest and most prolific storyteller, Stephen King. For regular listeners of the show, you might know that every now and again I have to fill up my own tank to continue forth on the one-woman podcasting path. And Constant Reader interviews really are these little oases in the vast desert of solo King content creation. They always give me a little bit of pep in my step, a bit of shade and rest, and overall education and camaraderie for the long road ahead. Now that school is almost totally out, and it's nearly full-on summer in my neck of the woods, what better way to start the freedom season than by heading east to meet up with Edgar and Wireman in Sarasota, Florida, Duma Key Beach to be exact. But first, we gotta make a quick pit stop in Louisiana and pick up today's Constant Reader interview guest, because her signature is on my Airbnb reservation for Big Pink, and we've got some beachin' and readin' to do. Miss Anna Dupree is the most bright and brilliant Southern lady who is the face of Anna Rose Reads, a bookstagram, podcast, and YouTube channel that champions the horror fiction genre. Miss Dupree is an academic like many of us and received her bachelor's in psychology from Louisiana State University, Go Tigers, and then attained her master's degree in forensic psychology from George Washington University. Girlfriend is highly decorated and fully armed for all the dark corners these horror authors can back her into, and as she's Sarah Connoring her way through the dark fiction depths and unknowns, she's been on her own Stephen King reading journey and has enough titles under her belt to add the badge of constant reader to her already long list of stellar accomplishments. Miss Dupree has just finished The Gunslinger for the very first time, and she has some capital T thoughts. And all the tower junkies out there listening better behave and make our new student feel welcome, which of course, I trust you all will. But Anna also recently finished The Stand, she's got Harold Lauder and Brady Hartsfield's number, she's a Carrie fan, and overall, Miss Dupree is in a prime spot for a pit stop to reflect and analyze her King journey thus far and prepare for the many miles ahead of her. I'm so excited for you all to hear her really layered and insightful ideas. Lovely listeners, please enjoy this wonderful time with a gal who I wish was my sister in real life. My dad's family has roots in southern Georgia, and I really pray we're somehow related. We gotta be kin somehow, somewheres. Just gotta. Miss Anna Dupree makes me feel like my 7-year-old self who was super precocious and brave and always ringing the doorbell of the neighborhood kids to make friends and go on adventures. And all I want to do is ring Anna's doorbell and nervously stare at my shoes and softly mumble to the ground, do you think you might want to, if you're not too busy, be my best friend? Okay, thanks. Great. Let's do it. And with that, buddies, let's get to it. Please enjoy this Constant Reader interview with today's guest of honor, Anna Dupree from Anna Rose Reads. All right, ladies and gentlemen, it is with tremendous pleasure to introduce my Constant Reader interview guest today. This is Miss Anna Dupree from Anna Rose Reads. Welcome, Anna.
Thank you so much for having me, Kim. I cannot tell you how excited I am to be here.
Me too. It's very electric joy right now.
Yes.
I'm so glad to chat with you again, and I'm so excited to hear your answers in terms of the Stephen King Constant Reader interview hot seat questions.
I am very excited to give my answers. I feel like I might have some hot takes, so I don't know. We'll see.
Oh, I'm ready. Okay. For those listening out there who might not have found your channel, Anna Rose Reads, can you tell us what you're all about?
Yeah, so my name is Anna and I run kind of it's like I'm really everywhere. I'm kind of all over the place and I'm everywhere. I'm on Instagram, I'm still hanging around on Twitter for now. BlueSky, Threads, YouTube. I have a podcast called Anna Rose Reads and all of these different platforms I'm mentioning I'm underneath the name Anna Rose Reads. And basically what I've tried to do is I started out reviewing horror books and I started really seriously reading horror in like the fall of 2022 and I realized like I had a really big gap in my classic horror literature or like modern horror literature. So, I really wanted to address that. And I had read King before, but I really wanted to go back and read the classics. So, in addition to reading new horror and reviewing new horror and interviewing authors, I do try and do my due diligence to go back and read, some of the classic stuff. And that's kind of where I landed with Stephen King. And I found myself reading his books and being really, really touched by them. And so then I ended up writing longer pieces and essays about it and just really diving in. And I love to talk to people about his work. It's really interesting to see how his work affects what we're reading now, currently in the new horror space. Yeah, so in general, I'm just kind of a horror nerd. I'm kind of everywhere and I kind of do a little bit of everything. It's kind of vague, but if you scroll through my social media pages, you'll see what I'm talking about.
Very nice, Miss Dupree. Oh my goodness, you are a celebrator of horror.
Yes, that's probably the best title that I can give myself.
You are one that fans the flames of the genre.
Yes, yes, yes. If I can.
Very nice. Well, I took a look at Miss Anna's Stephen King catalog, the titles she had accomplished, and I was like, what? This girl's ready. She's got the street cred. Let's do this. She is absolutely ready for these questions. So we're going to start with the very first one, which is, how old were you when you read your very first Stephen King title, and which title was it?
If my memory serves me correctly, I believe it was 2015, and I think I was 16 or 17 at the time, and it was The Shining. And I kind of read it for not super cool purposes. I went to Catholic school, and we had to do a research paper for our English class where we like read a book, and then we wrote the research paper on the author, and we kind of like tied the two together. And I guess I was feeling somewhat rebellious. I don't know. And, there was a list of books that we were, recommended to read, and The Shining wasn't necessarily on it. But thankfully, my English teacher approved. And, I'm going to read something that's, really scary and messed up. And then, I read it and I wrote the paper on it. And it was really funny because I actually found the paper. Like, I have the paper in my possession still. And I went back and I read it. And it's not nearly as cringy as I thought it would be. But yeah, that was my first interaction with Stephen King. It was The Shining. It very much was not what I expected because, especially with The Shining, everybody thinks of the movie, right? So, and I hadn't seen the movie going in. Like, I just had this kind of notion that it was going to be like really freaky, really jump scary, really, whatever. And I think more than anything, the book just made me sad. Like, I was just like really, really sad about how dark it was, And I don't know that I fully appreciated it then the way that I was supposed to. It was really funny though, because I read my paperback and I I really focused on King addressing his alcoholism. Like as a 17-year-old, I was already like analyzing this man through the character of, with the Torrances and the hotel and, all this stuff and his life's work and everything. And I read it back and I was like, huh, that's a little more insightful than I thought. Because, I've had friends and family members who have suffered with addiction. And I was like, it didn't even dawn on me how much I was picking up on that when I was younger. So a reread is in order. I really need to reread it now that I'm older with a greater appreciation for it. But yeah, that was my first run-in with King. And it would be a few years later before I picked him up again.
Oh, I love this. I love your rebellion, firstly.
Yeah.
Let us celebrate that. I also love that you brought King into an academic space because I know that, thank goodness, you had a very accepting English teacher. I'm very happy to hear that because a lot of them out there, I've gotten in very heated verbal debates with many of them. They don't want King in the classroom, which blows my mind. I can't, it makes me want to rage and flip tables.
I'm with you.
I'm thrilled that you cut your teeth early on a really rich one and it was in school. Double points.
Yeah. Yeah, it was like really unique, because I was like really having to pull from his life, and I remember thinking about how much he was the Torrances, like he was, whatever, when I went through all of his biographical materials. And I thought that it was really cool and interesting, but again, it just kind of made me sad because again, it wasn't quite what I was expecting as a teenager. I don't think that you realize what the world is really about when you're 16 or 17. I don't care how worldly you are. So yeah, it was definitely interesting that I've picked that one of all of King's books, I think, to pick up and analyze in that way. But it's funny how it works.
Deep stuff. Yep, yep, yep.
Yep.
All right, we are transitioning into our next question, and I've seen your lovely King list. I was very excited about it. But can you tell everybody out there approximately how many King titles do you have under your belt?
Yeah, I went through and I counted, and I think I'm right at 20 now. Like I think I am right at 20. Yeah, weird journey for me. I read The Shining and then I read Pet Sematary in college. And that's another one that I don't feel like I like fully got a grasp on. And then, I read a lot of crime, so then I naturally picked up Mr. Mercedes. And that which is a weird place for people to like really start with King, but that was where I started, like in earnest. So yeah, a lot of my like if you look at the time period of King's writing, like where I've read the most, it's actually his most recent stuff, I guess, because of the Mr. Mercedes and like The Outsider and stuff. But yeah, I've just kind of been all over the map otherwise with this stuff. I've just been hopscotching everywhere.
I support that. I have had a similar journey. I
Yeah.
support the hopscotch, let me tell you. One thing that I like, Anna, is you've done the due diligence to knock out the big King works, the big toe breaker King works, such as It and The
Yeah.
Stand. And you and I coincidentally, serendipitously read The Stand right around the same time, which was tremendous. I wanted to ask, out of the 20 King titles you've read thus far, is there one that you noticed, oh, wow, everybody loves this one? And then you read it and you're like, really? And vice versa. Is there one that you found that was maybe in an underrated, shadowy space that not a lot of people have kind things to say about? And you're like, hold the phone. This is brilliant.
Yeah. I so the title that I think is underrated is actually like the one that everybody I feel like feels is underrated is Duma. Like every time you ask somebody, everybody says that. So I don't know if it's really underrated at that point, but I just don't feel like it gets the conversational space that like a lot of his really classic like The Shining or The Stand or any of those books. But there is something so special about Duma that just like touched a part of my soul that I will forever treasure. And I think it's the way that King talks about creativity and artwork. It's such in like this, it's almost like a spiritual way. It's not a religious. It's like I don't know, it's ethereal. It's very hard to describe. And I love that book for it. And then like additionally, I think that a lot of people really don't like the Mr. Mercedes stuff. And I get it, whenever you've read stuff like The Shining and It and all these like grand masterworks of horror from King, I certainly crave more of that as well. Like how could you not? However, I don't think that there's anything categorically wrong with the Mr. Mercedes trilogy for what it is. Like he's writing more, it's almost cop procedural, but not really. It's more like investigative procedural. And he's got his own flair. And yeah, like there's some like cringy moments and there's some, not maybe not the best, characterizations and it's King being King, but I see nothing wrong with those. And in fact, if I ever go to recommend a King book to like a friend who I know is reading like Frida McFadden or like those typical thrillers that people are popularly reaching for, I would definitely recommend King's thriller stuff because that's gonna be your bridge to everything else. So I feel like those get a lot of hate. And some of it's, I get it. Some of it I'm like, yeah, y'all are kind of being a little harsh. And then another one that I feel like people kind of rag on is Buick 8. And I can thank Neil McRobert for that because he's always said, that Buick 8 is an underrated gem. And I read it for the first time this past year. And it's not conventional. And to me, it did run a little long for me. But I really liked what King was doing with that story, like the bigger picture. And like, it's such a what if book. And I find myself thinking about it more and more as time goes on, especially as it relates to like his other works and like how many other, I'm just started the Dark Tower series, so I'm sure that it's going to come up again there in some way. But I really liked what he did with that book about like life and loss and grief and all those different things. I really, really enjoyed it. The ones that I think are overhyped. I know I'm gonna get some heat for this, but it's the Gunslinger man. I just read it. I'm like, oh man, I can't imagine a 7 book series of this.
Oh my gosh. Okay. So I'm going to pause you for just a second because that's going
Yeah.
to be my very next question because
Okay.
you have opened up the floodgates. I can't wait.
Yeah.
But I wanted to pause and celebrate your beautiful answers
Okay.
because you are my kind of constant reader, Miss Dupree. You get it, all caps. And I really appreciate that you are seeing the things that many do not.
Yeah.
But I mean, if you are moved by Duma, you're in.
Oh yeah.
You're
Yeah.
in. And you know that it needs to be talked about more. It's got such a powerful, gorgeous, broken-hearted elegance to it. And from a Buick 8, I love the hell out of it.
Yeah.
I think it's such a philosophical journey.
It is. Yeah.
It's an unsatisfying yet simultaneously satisfying experience, which is wild when the reader gets left with such a dichotomy.
Yeah. Well, just like conflicting emotions, and it's like I feel like it's King's version of like Zen and the Art of Motorcycle Racing. Like he's tossing out what he knows to be true of life through these characters, and he's unpacking. I've listened to a lot of other people's opinions on this book and how it relates to his accident. How he was kind of faced with death and mobility, and what life looked like after. I mean, to me, it doesn't feel like coincidence that somebody gets killed in the first couple of pages by getting hit by a vehicle in Buick 8. So it feels like a very personal novel to King. I don't know. And there's a lot of emotion to it that's running beneath the surface of that one. And I mean, I'll never really forgive him for what he does to that dog in that book, but it's a very good book. I do love that one.
All right. So now you walked right into my beautiful question. I
Yeah.
always like to ask constant readers overall, what are their thoughts on the Dark Tower? So this is very, very cool that we are meeting you on your first step. This is
Yes.
book 1. So we are just revising this question just a tiny bit. We're tweaking it just a little bit to ask Miss Dupree, what are your thoughts on the Gunslinger?
Okay, so I'm gonna say this is gonna sound like so uneloquent, but I'm gonna elaborate and hopefully I can redeem myself. But The Gunslinger is such a boy book. It is such a masculine, detached book that I just wanted to scream a little bit. Because had it been the first thing that I read from King, I'd be like, okay, this is just how he writes. But it's not. We have Carrie in our hands. We've been having Carrie in our hands. It's the first thing that King gets published, right? And we know he can handle emotion and depth of character and action and all these things. And then you pick up the Gunslinger and you're like, where did all of it go? Where did it go? And I know, so I have not read The Lord of the Rings. Like I'm not a Tolkien fan. Like that's not for me. I've tried. I just can't get into it. And I know The Dark Tower is very much a fantasy series more than it is a horror series. And there's a lot of parts to that series that mirror that of Tolkien and the journey and all these things. The points that I say that it's a boy book are these. Roland is a man who is just like tough boy man the whole way through until we get the sliver of his guilt and doubt at the end. And for that, I'm going to stay tuned for that. That's my driving force is like, oh, is he ever going to survive this? Because this is eating him alive, and this is going to follow him to every world he ever goes to, right? That being said, it takes a long time for us to get to that point. It's a weirdly horny book. This I know, like there are so many sexual points in this book, and I'm like, why? Why? Like it makes no sense because this everything else is so void of emotion, and yet there's like all of this like sex coded these scenes that I'm like this doesn't make sense in my brain. Like I just doesn't it's not cohesive for me. Like and whatever, that's fine. But moreover, I think like my favorite part honestly was like learning about Jake whenever we get like the 5 or 10 pages in Jake's story. One, I get it's an easy recognizable plot point because he seems like he's from our world. Like I don't know if he is or if he isn't at this point. He seems like he's from our world, so we can relate, right? But then we're out of it and we don't really go back. We just get little teasers of it from his conversations with Roland. It's also just really heartbreaking. And I get that that's supposed to be the point, but we all know where the story's going and those kinds of things. I am interested to see what King does with it, and I really I had to laugh. I read it on my Kindle, and quite literally the first 6% of the Gunslinger is King apologizing for the book. It's him saying this is a young man's book. This is a, blah blah blah. And so I thought that was it was kind of funny to me. I couldn't help but laugh. I'm like, okay, so who knows what we're gonna get into when we get to it. That being said, there is a lot that I do like about the Gunslinger. I do like the Western gritty feel that we get. I think that's very atmospheric, that's very fun, that's very nice. I do like the idea of a journey. We don't know what we're going to roll upon next. As strange as the fortunes and the and all of the things that Roland gets, I think it'll be really interesting to see how those play out. That always holds a little bit of promise for me. The Dark Man, obviously we just came off of reading The Stand, so it's interesting to see how that plays into Randall Flagg and all that stuff, but like even he was just like, I don't understand this. I just don't understand his character work. Like, I just can't make heads or tails of him. And I know that's kind of the point. He's an enigma. But yeah, it's kind of a novel that just feels all over the place in terms of, for those reasons. And I know as me as a reader, like my personal preference, I would love to have deeper emotional character work. And we're talking about a fantasy series, so we're talking about a lot of action and adventure and things like that. So that's probably a little bit of the disconnect as well. But some of it I just wish that we could have gotten a little more out of. And like the scenes that really spoke to me were like with Roland casually telling Jake how he became a man. It just was kind of jarring. Like, it was a really emotional scene about how he had, like trained or not trained, befriended his falcon or this hawk, David, and he like triumphs and comes out, and then he's like, and then I lost my virginity. And I'm like, okay, well, all right. Just slap that on at the end there. So it's a bunch of like near misses for me. Like I'm rallying and then I'm like, oh, okay. And then we're kind of backing off for me. But yeah, that's my analysis of the Gunslinger. It just feels like a very masculine book to me. Again, nothing wrong with it at all. I totally get it. But just knowing what King is capable of is where I'm like, ugh, I wish like we could have had a little bit more here, if that makes sense.
Wonderfully said, Miss Anna. I was dying over here trying to stifle my hag's cackles because it is so hilariously accurate. I think that you have hit the nail on the head. And what's really compelling about The Gunslinger is, for the most part, myself included, many align with your perspective. Many see that this novel is flawed.
Yeah.
So very flawed, and the flaws are so glaring, it's a little bit hard to reconcile, and it's not a very satisfying reading experience. However, there's a couple out there who I've chatted with, and they're brilliant individuals. I respect them greatly, but they look at The Gunslinger like a masterwork. They really see it as this perfect mess, a perfect chamber of horrors, if you will. Which, it's like anybody in an art museum looking at a painting. I see something derivative and dumb, and they see a masterwork. I don't know.
Yeah, and it's one of those things that I don't doubt that I'll probably grow in my appreciation for it once I read more of the series and I see like what King does with what the groundwork that he's laid down with this. Because I mean, like, I don't doubt you write a series of this magnitude, it's like it's hard to nail it all in one go. Like it would be weird if he did. However, again, had it just been that I read The Gunslinger, I'd be like, yeah, okay, like I get it. But having read everything else that comes before The Gunslinger, it kind of baffles me a little bit. Like, why would you take away the things that make your book so great? Like, and it's probably not even a conscious thing, and I'm certainly don't fault him for it. I think whenever you are trying something new or venturing this deeply into something different, you're kind of testing out to see what works and what doesn't. But why you would lose some of the character depth, that just gutted me, because again, we know what that looks like successfully in his other books. So
it is a very messy patchwork quilt with the ugliest sewing stitches you've ever seen. Yeah. That's how I feel about it. I see largely what you mentioned, the potential. I am intrigued by certain parts, but I only really come to life in book 5 with the palaver and the man in black, because then we're looking ahead. We're leaving the Gunslinger behind, this narrative experience, and we're looking to the future. And that's what I gravitated towards. It's like, okay, we're out of here. Let's look ahead to the quest, what the tower is, really getting greater character depth for Roland. So book 5 is my favorite part because we're exiting the novel.
Yeah, no, I totally get it. And like a lot of people that I feel like I've talked to about it, they talk about Wizard and Glass being like the book that's gonna wreck you. And I'm like, okay, I'm all in until then. Like I will get through book 2 and 3 at whatever cost to get to 4 because the kind of like emotional wreckage people are talking about, I'm like, okay, that's my bread and butter. Like I'm all in for that. However, I don't know. We're gonna find out. I know that everybody says too that book 2 is like a little bit of a whiplash in terms of what happens, and I'm all for it. And I'm not trying to read them all back to back to back. I have a lot of other stuff that I'm reading, so I'm spacing it out here and there, and I don't know exactly when I'm going to pick up the second one next. But I'm definitely not, I don't feel deterred to pick up the second one because everybody has told me how different it is. So it's like, and somebody told me this too. Somebody said like the Gunslinger just reads like a prologue, and that feels very fitting. Like that feels like yeah, okay, we just get a little tidbit of Roland and what's to come, and then we're gonna really dive in with book 2. So I don't know. We'll see. Stay tuned.
That's a healthy stance to have. I like that a lot.
Yeah.
I have not finished my journey. I'm not sure if you're aware. I just finished book 5 a couple
Yeah.
months ago. So I am still making my way through for the very first time. So we're in the same canoe.
Yeah.
We're in the same canoe in it.
It's good to know.
But I think visualize, if you will, you're in a dungeon of sorts and you will crawl up.
Yeah.
I think that the Gunslinger is the bottom and you're going to crawl out, and each level is more and more satisfying. Book 2 is Drawing of the Three.
Yeah.
It is a bullet train to testosterone town. And I mean that in an action film sort of sense. It's
Yeah.
the mid 80s. It's very action packed, very thrill ride. It's fun. The plot moves lightning fast. The characters are fun and intriguing. You'll have a really good time. Book 3, even more fun. Even more fun. And I really started to enjoy where we were at with these characters. Everything starts to feel a little bit more meaty and established. And so I liked book 2, I liked book 3, and then I loved Wizard and Glass.
Yeah.
Wizard and Glass, I think, opens up your heart to love. And then from Wizard and Glass, I was able to love Wolves of the Calla. So they get richer and deeper, and I'm excited for you.
Yeah, I'm excited too. And like I also want to say this too is like I think that I am somebody who on the whole really enjoys like masculine literature. Like I love a good like angry woman story. And like there are times that I just need to read something written by a female about the female experience. But a lot of times, and particularly when it involves like crime or very like logical, like kind of like almost near sci-fi, I will readily grab for more of a male voice. I read like a lot of Philip Fracassi or Ronald Malfi and like Nat Cassidy. He can write it all, so I don't feel like he can we can define him one way or the other. But there are certain authors that I feel like they're very and like Paul Tremblay, I feel like he's a very stern, somewhat male voice. So like those are the books that I really enjoy. So me calling the Gunslinger really a boy book, it is like real like it feels really far away from emotional attachment is what I mean to say by that. Like it feels like the frat boy that you meet freshman year of college. He does not want to commit. You are determined to get him to commit, and then before you know it, 7 years down the line, you've got like 7 books, and there it is.
Oh my God, I treasure this so much. The frat boy experience. Oh, oh dear. Yeah, that's perfect. It haunts me in the best way.
I'm glad you can appreciate it.
Yeah, I'm like, wow, the accuracy. It's startling, really.
Yeah.
Okay, I did want to jump to a question on villains. In your King reading experience, who do you enjoy, admire, or who really, really frightens you or makes you feel/connect with the narrative? Who are your favorites?
Okay, so we've talked about Harold in The Stand because I the fact that King wrote him in a like textbook incel way before we were ever talking about incels still just like blows my mind. And he's a character that like I feel like I need to shower after reading. He's the one, when he's practicing smiling in the mirror and how it hurts and you're just like this is so gross. It just is absolutely disgusting. However, he's the one that like lingers in your mind, like, oh, he's gross, he's nasty, whatever. The one that really angered me whenever I read about her was Carrie's mom. The things that she just like, because I was a Catholic and then I have left the church, like it's just not for me. And so the things that she says were just so emotionally, oh, you just want to scream. And she's not so much of a villain, and I wanted to bring her up. She's really not a villain, but she's a character that I think about constantly because she falls in this like morally gray space as Sue Snell. I could think about Sue Snell for days. Like, and I do. Like, I think about it's so crazy because, we meet her and she's part of the bullying gang that bullies Carrie. But then before it's all over, it's like she's trying to do the right thing, but you don't ever really know her motivation. Like, you think you do. And, the way that King writes that book is kind of like in that found footage way of like recovered documents and transcripts and stuff, but it does cut to a narrative point. So we think we know Sue, but do we? And is it just the girl who's trying to do it right because it's the right thing or because she genuinely wants to? And that's something that I struggle with a lot. I'm a girl that's like struggled with female friendships like for all of her life. Like sometimes it's just really hard. And so whenever you have a character like Sue, she's like the friend that you don't know where you stand with, Like you wonder where she ends up and how she really is. So she is super fascinating to me. Again, she's not a cut and dry villain per se. She's one of those morally gray characters that I think about constantly because she's so complex.
I love that. I really enjoy those choices. Well done. Yeah, Sue is, oh, good one.
Yeah.
Really
Yeah.
good one. Yeah, okay. I like that. Now I'm thinking about Sue. I don't like her.
Yeah.
Carrie.
I know.
Right? Right?
Yeah.
Like, you know exactly what I mean. I think
Yeah.
Carrie, as females, we're able to just say, yes, as females, this sucks. We can absolutely identify with the female ugliness and terror in this book, and it is soul shattering. Even though it's been a hot minute since I read Carrie, I've only read it once.
Mm-hmm.
It makes a mark. It really does.
And it's like, because I think as women, there's no part of that book that I don't think you identify with, even the good parts and the bad. Like, what it's like when you just want to fit in and like you're not even thinking about what you're like. We've all been Sue, I think, at one point. You get caught up in something, you're like, oh shit, that's a problem. Or we've all been Carrie, where we get ridiculed for that one thing that we really like and it's maybe not what everybody else is into or, whatever else. And I kind of hate that we've made Carrie a good for her horror narrative. And I get why we do, but it just reads more as a tragedy to me. And even like Chris being as cruel as she is, I really can't fathom it. But she just leans so hard into it, And she's so like her dynamic. I can't think of her boyfriend's name off the top of my head right now.
Billy.
Yeah, that whole dynamic was so fascinating to me. Those two, my God, I was like, what kind of hell on wheels is this? Because even then, like she's getting mistreated by him by the end, and you feel bad for her, and it's like, okay, what's going on in her life that this is the attention that she thinks she deserves? So there's no part of this book, there's no female character in this book, but I'd say, with the exception of Carrie's mother, I don't think that there's any part of this that I don't relate to as a woman. I can't get past the religious idolatry and the persecution and all, but even then, when we hear about her experience with Carrie's dad, then you're like, well, was she just a product of that too? And unfortunately, we don't get enough to really get a firm answer. So we relate to her a little bit too. So there really isn't one that we don't, like, I don't know. It's just all so complex and all of it's really morally gray. And I hate whenever people say that Carrie's a villain. I just think she's a tragedy. That's my biggest like soapbox king opinion that I could go on for hours.
Oh my God, I'd be with you. When you need to tap out and you need
Yeah.
a break, I will filibuster for you and say that Carrie will never be a villain. As long as there is breath in these lungs, she will never be a villain. Oh my God.
Perfect.
My goodness.
Yeah, it kind of irks me too, because like whenever you go to like Party City or the costume stores that open up at Halloween, and they've got Carrie next to like Jason, and even Jason's somewhat misunderstood because the kid drowned while everybody else is having sex, so he's misunderstood. But then next to like Freddie and Pinhead and all, you're like, man, this doesn't feel right a little bit, because it's so much deeper than that. But I get it.
Anything for a Halloween buck, I guess, but I'm
Yeah.
with you.
Yeah.
I'm with you. She is so tragic. She breaks my heart. And for me, I'm more apt and inclined to head towards the religious studies route,
Yeah.
particularly tribal religions. And
Hmm.
so when Carrie has her blood baptism, for me, I think she stops becoming female altogether.
Oh, that's interesting.
Yeah, I think she becomes a genderless deity.
I
Yeah.
love that theory. I had never thought about. Oh man.
Right. For me, I think like
Yeah.
we see blossoming womanhood, we see blossoming sexuality, but that blood baptism is a guillotine of her
Oh
human
yeah.
experience. She has godlike powers. And so when she has the blood baptism, she is awakened into this new form. And I don't believe she's human anymore. I don't think she's a female anymore, which many people do disagree with me, and they want to view Carrie as a female warrior. But if you think about it, she's super destructive. We don't really hear Carrie use words. We don't see
Oh
Carrie
yeah.
emote. So for me, she's absolutely a genderless deity killing machine.
That no, I could say, and it's really interesting that you say that because it's almost like King switches the narrative too when we follow Sue, and she's thinking, Sue, at this point in the book, Sue's thinking she's pregnant, and then like all hell rains down and she's running away and she gets her period. And so it's almost like as the blood falls for both of them, that's where it switches from we're gonna follow this female experience to this one. Yeah, that's super interesting. I had never heard that theory before, but that like really kind of like gets the wheels spinning for me.
Right? That's what I think it helped me in my emotional processing of the book as well, to
Yeah.
not see her as this as much of a tragic female character who
Yeah.
just absolutely gets destroyed by the girls in her school, by her mother, by so many people in the community, life in general. And so I tried to focus on the supernatural elements and look at tribal religions and what they say about blood and the power in blood. And so I think Carrie was activated. She transcended, no longer a girl, no longer a human, just a boss killing
Yeah.
machine.
Yeah.
Just a boss kicking ass, killing
Yeah.
everyone, a destroyer. I wouldn't even say goddess. I don't know. Maybe she could be a goddess, but I think it's even surpassed that. I don't even think she's female or human.
Yeah. I think like Agent of Chaos is probably like the best label you could just slap on it. It's just like because
Perfect.
it's just a warpath, like
Perfect. That
yeah.
works so well. Oh my gosh, you're my favorite. I'm having so much fun, Anna. All right, let's jump to our question about the Stephen King reread experience. I know that you are a busy lady going through many TBR titles. Tell me the King titles who receive a secondary reading experience from you, and what is that secondary experience like, as like you said, you are aging and things happening of that nature.
Yeah. So I haven't actually gotten to do it yet, but high on the priority list, there's two titles, and we've already talked about The Shining, that like I am really, really desperate to reread because I know reading it as an adult now would mean a whole lot more to me or, hit differently. It's definitely The Shining. There's just a lot to unpack there and to unpack, Wendy's dynamic as a mother who's caught in this relationship but also loves her son and all that female role. I feel like is something I'll have a way different perspective and appreciation on as somebody who's been in the real world a little bit longer than when I was in high school. And then additionally, the other book that is like tip top of my priority reread list is Pet Sematary. That is one that I read in college because the remake movie was coming out, and I was like, I want to go see it, and I need to read the book first. But it was not. It was an upset. It was just a really upsetting read. It got to me, but I don't know that it again landed in the way that it was supposed to. It's one that I don't think that you realize the kind of grief that he's writing about until you're older and you have much more responsibility. I think I read it like as a junior in college, and that was like a very like it wasn't like a transitional point of my life, but it was like kind of like a chaotic time because you're still figuring out what you want to do, where you want to go, who you want to be. And when I read it, I don't think I was like very certain in myself and like who I was, so the book didn't land with me. But now that I'm older, I am somebody who very much like craves people to be responsible and responsibility and the Creed family responsibility and the maybe the lack there, like however you want to look at that with the loss of Gage and their grief, and then Lewis just doing whatever he can to get Gage back. I think that's going to hit a lot differently as an adult and trying to understand, like the family dynamics at play and things like that. Because of course, whenever you read, it's just like a freaky a thing, kind of like a zombie book the first time that you read it. But I know that there was so much more going on in that book that I did not get the first time I read it.
I'm with you there. I read it many, many years ago, but I need to do a reread for sure. I am not a parent and I don't plan on being one anytime soon. So I know that I've talked to other constant reader parents who say it hits real different once you have
Yeah.
kids, of course. But I do believe there's something tremendously powerful with what King's exploring with life after death. And if we had the power to bring someone back, and the whole notion of dead is better, it is.
Yeah.
But sometimes our psyches are so fragile, we can't handle the finality of it.
Oh, absolutely not. And like I'm not somebody who has children either, and I'm not planning on having children anytime soon, but I have had a dog slip a leash and run into the street. And that moment, that panic of running, and like there weren't even cars coming. There wasn't, it was a quiet Sunday. So like even having that one very small experience of, oh shit, I'm not gonna get her back. And this dog holds a very fragile balance of my life in her very small paws. Because I love this dog. Even that small experience, that panic, I can only imagine it's magnetized by 1,000 if it's your child that runs out into the street and then there is a vehicle coming, I mean, stuff like that, there's just certain life things, small life things that read different once you've experienced them.
I'm sure you encounter this a lot with the prolific amount of horror books that you are consistently plugged into, which I love so much, incredibly inspired. But I really like slash am terrified by when King takes you to the edge, the human edge, where you are staring down into the abyss of all existential terror. And I feel Pet Sematary is one that immediately takes you there. You go to the edge.
Oh, I agree. It's like an all gas, no brakes kind of book. Like it's just there's like a dread that's induced in the writing and in the pages of that book as soon as you open it. You just know it's not going anywhere good. And if I could plug any book that I feel like has probably captured that feeling that I've read like in the last 2 or 3 years, it's probably Clay McLeod Chapman's What Kind of Mother. It's a book that explores similar themes, and it's just it gets a little bit wilder than I'd probably say Pet Sematary does, in terms of where it ends up. But man, it just guts you. It's just it's a book that guts you with grief and loss and how far you would go to get back the people that you love. Like, oh my God.
Oh man, I'm here for it.
I even hate to use the word grief word because it's kind of a reductive genre, but he writes a lot about loss, is probably what I should say. There's another book called Ghost Eaters that deals in particular with addiction and loss. And that book like rewired my brain on how I think about addiction. It was so, so good. He's really like in tune with loss and sadness in a way that is hard to define. And he also had another novella I think that came out called well, I can't think of the name of it right now. It'll come to me when I'm trying not to think of it. But three of his books off the top of my head are like ones that I think, oh yeah, you want to feel as bad as you did when you read Pet Sematary, read these.
I got you. Awesome. I've wrote down. I will also email you and you can give me
Oh
a
yeah,
list as well.
absolutely.
I would love that so, so much. All right. Moving right along to Stephen King film and television. Do you have a favorite adaptation?
I mean, I feel like I'm just talking about Carrie a lot, but De Palma's Carrie is just stunning to me. The scene when she's at prom, you just feel as magical as she does. I don't know how he does it. I don't know what it is that he does, but man, ugh, I love that one. I'm trying to think about what other ones I really like John Carpenter's Christine. I feel like that movie and that book gets a lot of heat, but I really, really liked it. And I feel like I wrote down some other ones too. Let's see. Because I know I had more than this. Oh, The Mist is one.
Good choice.
It's just so brutal. It's so mean.
Yeah.
It's almost absurd with how mean the ending of that movie is, and it's one that like I'll recommend to people. I'm like, if you really want a plot twist, you have to go watch this one. Yeah, that's a mean movie. And I think it was shot in Shreveport, Louisiana, and I'm from Louisiana, so state represent, even though that's up north and that's kind of like South Arkansas, but we'll take what we can get.
Very nice. I'm with you on Christine. I don't hate Christine. I like her. I like the novel. The movie's fun.
Me too. Christine was one of the again, I read King in a really weird order. And the reason that I picked up Christine was I had gone to Boston to go tour grad schools. And we found a used bookstore while we were in Boston, and they had like the original paperback cover, like the cool vintage one. So I bought it for, a couple bucks. And then I like really wanted to get back into reading King like a year or so later. So then I just had that one. That was the one that I picked up. And I really liked it. Like, I think it's such a unique view of adolescence and getting older. And like that book catches a lot of heat, which I get because, we spend a lot of time just like bebopping around. But I really, really like that one. And in particular with the movie, the scene where the car rebuilds itself. But I don't know how they filmed that, but to me, that was a super impressive scene. I really, other than everybody looking like they're 30 or 40 years old when they're supposed to be in high school, which is like every film. That was like my only problem with the film of Christine. I have no complaint.
Right? The age of the actors is
Yeah.
laughable for sure. Everybody looks 35 and up at least. I'm with you there. But the Christine novel, I really enjoy the dynamic between Dennis and Arnie because
Yeah.
Arnie we feel immense empathy for, bless his heart. But then Dennis is like a shitty friend. He's so shitty. He just covets Arnie the whole time. He's kind to him to his face, but he steals this girl behind his back. I also really love 50s nostalgia.
Yeah. That was my thing too. It's such an American book. When I think about
Yes.
that book, it feels so American. He like breaks his foot or his leg playing football, and it's like the end of his life, and I'm like, oh my God, how much more American can you get? Okay.
Right?
Yeah, no, it's a very, very American book. That's the biggest takeaway I probably have from Christine.
100%. You're dead on. Super duper American, 50s nostalgic. I love all the music. And one of my favorite chapters is, I think it's towards the end, and it's a New Year's Eve one, which is my favorite holiday. So super biased. But Dennis goes over to Arnie's place and they drink. And then Arnie drives Dennis home in Christine, and it's New Year's Eve. And meanwhile, Dennis can see dead people in the back and he sees Roland LeBay. And I was like, this is pun intended, firing on all cylinders. This is so much fun. I love
Yeah.
this. It's so spooky. It's so atmospheric. It is so American. The friendship dynamic between these two. Dennis is not a good guy, but he's our narrator. So we're stuck with this idiot. There's so much to admire. I'm glad you enjoy it as well.
No, I definitely do. It's just like the perfect little nostalgic read for me. Like if you're looking to time travel back to the 50s, that's what you got to pick up. That's it.
I agree wholeheartedly. Okay, we have a couple left, and I'm going to ask about your favorite Stephen King couple, friendship, or team that you have found in your King title reading.
Okay, so the obvious answer here is like Jake and Sadie, right? Like
Yeah.
everybody loves Jake and Sadie. They're great. Although I'm gonna be honest, I don't love Jake as a character. I don't think he's the best. He kind of says and does some things. I'm like, it's a little misogynist, but whatever. But he does go back in time, so I'm trying to cut him some slack, and he is wrestling with a lot. I think overall, and this, my reading is a little bit limited because I've heard a lot of people talk about the Dead Zone had some unique relationships and stuff, and I haven't read that yet, and I really want to get to it. And I think my favorite duo, honestly, is Wireman and Fremantle.
Yeah.
I love them tremendously, and like I was waiting. It was one of those things when I was reading Duma that I was like waiting for the other shoe to drop and to like find out that Wireman was just like a piece of shit, and he never was, and that was amazing. He was a good dude all the way through. And he was just like a vibe. Like it's just that's not very eloquent or like academic of me to say, but he was just such a warm presence. He's just like his character's like a warm hug. That's who you want in your corner. That's who you want to be your friend in real life. And oh, I love Wireman to death. I mean, love that dude.
A plus. You get an A plus. Oh, amazing choice, Anna. I'm so
Thank you.
glad that you know the power of Edgar and Wireman.
Yeah, no, they're so. And a lot of people I think I heard somebody talk about the scene whenever they meet, and it's just kind of absurdist about how they laugh, like, so whatever. But if you've read any amount of King, like, God, you love a moment like that because everybody else is in the trenches all of the time. So anytime that we get a moment of like clarity or brief, like levity, like, I'm taking it. I'm taking
Yes.
it because everybody's suffering, which obviously is the point of his work, but It's such a, I don't know. It's Duma is such a vibrant book to me, and I partially probably because I read it when I was on a Florida beach, so it's very vibrant in my mind. But God, I love that book. It's sad. It's so sad, and it punches you where it hurts. But for the most part, when I think about that book, I think about all of the good things of Edgar uncovering his talent as an artist, and whether it's, through his own means or somebody else's, something supernatural. His success with that, him finding himself, even, he you don't think that you're gonna like him when you start because you hear about how terrible he is in this terrible accident, but there's just so much to love about that book, man.
I wish I could just reach through the computer and hug you, Anna, because it means so much to hear someone celebrate Duma because it does not get a lot of
Oh,
focus and love and adoration, and it should. And so I'm so glad that you know its power, you felt its power. It's really special.
I had like such a book hangover after I read it. It took me so off guard because nobody talks about it. So I was like, didn't
Yeah.
brace myself. Like somewhat with it, I knew I was going to be upset when I finished that one, or like 11/22/63, and even The Stand to a fault. I was like, I know I'm probably gonna have strong feelings about these, but nobody warned me about Duma. I just like went in blind, and I came out so emotional.
Same. I adore that book, and it is the hill I will die on to
Yeah,
help it get greater exposure and people take the time, because so many people shelved it and did not finish it because of the pacing, which I understand, but it just breaks me because they don't know the
I know.
amazingness.
No, I agree. And I think, there are some I think with any of King's longer works, there are some points where it kind of meanders and lingers maybe a little bit longer than it should at some points. But I think that Duma and Buick 8 have a lot in common, and that King's unpacking a lot about healing, whether
Yes.
it's, physically, mentally, emotionally, however that is. And I think that the space that Duma takes up is very it's very intentional as it comes to the healing process. Like there are going to be ebbs and flows, and this is going to move quickly and this is going to move slowly. And I think that feels very intentional and very realistic to what it's like to be in that situation. So
So well said. So
thank
lovely.
you, thank
Oh,
you.
so nice, Anna. Okay, I am so excited to ask you this question because you're the very first person to receive it.
Oh, okay.
This is a brand new 2025 constant reader interview question that is similar to a 2024 question about which character would you like to punch in the face. It's got similar or cause bodily harm of your choice.
Yeah.
So I wanted everyone to unleash their inner sadist on a King character. But this one is smoothing it out just a little bit. And so this question is asking, which Stephen King character would you save from a fire? And in the same vein, which King character would you throw into the fire?
This is like a messed up trolley car problem, I feel like.
Yes.
I mean, honestly, like this feels like a very basic answer, but I can't help but feel it is Carrie and her mom. I just want to save Carrie. I just want to save her from the hurt. And like as a woman, it's so hard to not want to just take Carrie and show her that there's so much more to life than this rhetoric that she's been given, and like not only been given, but like drilled into her. Everything that her mother says, does, and teaches it's not a passing comment. It's not passive aggressive. It's aggressive. It's in your face. You're not missing it. And even like I say, throw her into the fire, but I don't even really know that at the end of the day. But with her mom, it's just such a complicated relationship. But like as I said, we don't know all of her story either, and we kind of get hints of what it was like with Carrie's father. So that's like the dynamic that I would probably say. But on the whole, who I would probably definitely pitch into the fire, man, this is tough. Harold triggers something in me. I don't
Yay!
I kind of want him gone. I'm not gonna lie. I
Love
just
it.
get so upset by him.
Me too.
There's nothing. People talk about his arc and his story, his
Nope.
growth, and I'm like, no. He is who he is. Like there's no I don't think that you could have given him any other outcome than who he becomes. Like he is who he is. It's not even nature or nurture. He just simply is, in my opinion.
I love that. I love that so much. And I agree with you completely. And I feel exactly the same. And I've tried to reconcile my feelings with the fact that he is only 17, 18, and he's just a dumb idiot boy at this age. But the way he speaks to Nadine in book
Yeah.
2, and just the entitled assholery and the cruelty and the sociopathic everything. I'm like, no, some dogs need to be put down, and you're one of them.
Yeah, I don't think that you come back from Harold being the way that he is. Like the hints that we get from Franny, like tangentially, is like, because it's her friend's little brother, we get some of like the exposition before we really meet him through Franny. And to hear a woman's intuition say, "Oh, he's gross and he's icky," and then to meet him and then like have that validated to like 5 times hold, no, like he's just gross. Like he is simply just gross, and he always has been, and he always will be, in my opinion. And I felt like he was given every opportunity to not be. And he just, and he like, he's the fact that he went and he found Franny's diary and he read it and it enraged him. To me, like, it wasn't accidental. He sought that out. The seeking behavior is what like really put the nail in the coffin for me on him. It's one thing if it's like tragic that you learn these things and it upsets you and you can't get past them, but he 100% did it to himself.
Great. Yes, he did. I agree. Well said. Let's move on to favorite Stephen King animal or pet that you've encountered thus far.
Oh, Kojak. So it's almost comical how good that dog is, but he's just the best dog. He should there's no world in which a dog would do the things that he did to save those people at the end of the stand, but I don't even care. I just love him so much. And I love that he just pops up. There's Kojak. No, he's just the best. He's just the goodest boy. There's no words. I just love that dog so much.
Great choice. He is such a sweet baby. And I love that he gets his whole little chapter where we learn he had a life before. And
oh my God, I'm gonna cry thinking about it again.
It really was powerful stuff. My goodness.
And they talk about how like even he lays down and he knows he's gonna lay down for the final time again and however many, and you're like, oh, it's not even happening on the page, but we know, like Kojak can't be forever. And that's terrible. It's so sad.
It really is soul shattering. That's one of the, the emotional resilience that I feel reading King has given me over the years. It all dissolves to nothingness when the animals are in peril. I am shattered. I am wounded. I walk around my house grieving for days.
Yeah, me too. So wait, I feel like I haven't encountered that many King animals because like I could only think of like Kojak and Church and like maybe a handful of others, but like what would be I want to know your answer to this because I want to see like what I need to look ahead to in my reading in terms of heartbreak with these animals.
Oh gosh, this is a wonderful question. There are so many dogs, and for whatever reason, I need to unpack this more psychologically, but I feel like I always try to remember the dogs that we lose.
Yeah, like Mr. Dillon in Buick 8.
Yes.
I will never forgive King for that.
Yes, or like Mr. Chips in It, or there's another dog that loses his life in Under the Dome. There's a dog that loses his life in...
This would make like an incredible like write-up article is like to the dogs that King is killing.
Yes, in the Dead Zone, we see a dog violently lose its life. And so for whatever reason, I like hold on to them.
Yeah.
And I don't understand. This is just my 100% my personal psychology. I feel like I have to keep them close and keep them with me.
No, I get it. Yeah.
So favorite creature, I think it's hard to pinpoint. There is one, but it is a Dark Tower character. And so I don't want to spoil anything for you. So I'm not gonna, but he's wonderful. And you're gonna love him. Yes, okay.
Yeah,
okay, you know.
I know who Oi is, but I haven't met him yet, obviously. But no, I'm looking forward to Oi.
Yes, he is very, very special. He is such a special guy. He is one of them, but I love David the Hawk. I love animals, and I really grieve and mourn the ones, and for whatever reason, I remember them vividly in my mind. And so I think about the ones that we've lost, and I'm like, they're my favorite. All of them that didn't get to survive this story, they're my favorite. But Oi is very, very close to number one. And then there's a conglomerate of the rest in peace department. But yeah, this is a great question that I think I'll need to process more. I think it's much more of an emotional question for me than I realized.
No, it is because like, and I feel like I've tried to talk to a few people or I've heard other people try and unpack why it is that we get so emotional whenever we lose animals. And I feel like between the patchwork of conversations that I've had or heard, I think that the reason you can project whatever you want onto an animal. You can, like, they're not going to fight you on it. So whenever you lose this thing, this little be like in particular dogs, this like unconditional love capsule entity that just bebops around with you for however long, and you are allowed to. They can't do any harm. They've never hurt your feelings, in a way that's any way meaningful. So that I think that's why it makes it so much more hurtful when we lose them. It's more of an innocence loss than anything else. Because I mean, people die left, right, and center in King's books, but I mean, whenever I'm like ugly crying of like Mr. Chips, and it so upset me.
Yes.
So yeah, I don't know what the scientific answer is behind our empathy with animals over people, but
Totally. And I hate it because in King's work, they're usually so trusting and so
oh
loving.
yeah. Well, he writes them with personality.
Right,
Yeah.
right. I know that Barbara Robinson, and I know she has a dog in the Mr. Mercedes trilogy. I'm drawing a blank. He's a golden.
Yeah, 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 that's true. That's who Brady was gonna poison before he accidentally poisoned his mom. So yeah,
Correct.
that's true.
Of course, in this particular moment, his name has evaded me because that's
Yeah.
what happens when you podcast. Your brain is just a whiteboard wiped clean. It's great,
Yeah.
the best. So I really love the Goldens, and I love that particular Golden in Mr. Mercedes. And I know that's Barbara Robinson's dog, and it's Odell. Thank you, God.
Yes,
Odell.
yes.
Odell. Yay. Oh, thank you, brain. Awesome. Odell, the Golden Retriever.
Yes.
I think I really enjoy the crime fiction. And like you
Hmm.
mentioned, Mr. Mercedes, yeah, the trilogy doesn't get a ton of love because it is an outlier King
Yeah.
experience. But I like that we have our recurring characters that we're growing with. We've got Jerome, his sister Barbara. We see them coming of age. And then Odell, their Golden, is a part of them. And so I really
Yeah.
love that family a lot.
Yeah, in particular too, like Jerome is such a good kid and he is so loyal to Odell. Like he's such a good dog owner. Like you can't help but love both of them more for that.
Yeah.
And there's another thing too, side tangent, about Finders Keepers, which is the second book. And I think I'm convinced that the opening of Finders Keepers, before we even know it's a Mr. Mercedes novel, is some of the best crime fiction ever written.
Ooh.
So underappreciated. I flew through it. I couldn't put it down. And I hadn't been like possessed to read like that in a really long time. There's something about like the coming of age narrative with the little boy who finds the treasure stashed in the woods that's like so I mean it reminds you of the body. Like and I don't
Yep.
know why people are overlooking like I can't fathom overlooking that just because it's part of the Mr. Mercedes trilogy, but that's one of my hot takes.
Oh, I'm here for it. I'm here for that fire because I love Finders Keepers. It's
Me
my
too.
favorite. It's my favorite of the trilogy.
Yeah, me too. I love it simply for the way that he writes the beginning of that book. I love it, love it, love it.
Incredible. It is incredible. The suspense,
You're just hooked.
John Rothstein, and the celebrity of this aging narrator and how his work. Yeah, it's very, very, very close.
Yeah, and he does that thing where he writes about writers, and you're like, it feels different than his normal. Oh, King's writing about writers again. Like it's so good. I don't know. I'm such a fan of it.
Yay! I'm so glad you love Finders Keepers. I love Pete Saubers and the whole Treasure Island segue we get. It's wonderful. It's so, so good. I'm so glad you are right in the vein with me in the underrated canoe, and you have a
Yeah.
paddle and I have a paddle, and we are just rowing, and I love this so much. Anna.
No, I agree. I agree for sure.
All right, we just have a handful more, which I know I said last time. Okay, so this is a fun one for an academic and a writer like yourself who is consistently celebrating other writers. If you had the ability to teleport to a Stephen King setting for a little while to get your work done, you could stay for a couple hours, you could stay for the summer. Is there any place in the King universe that you would like to hang out in?
Yeah, it's Big Pink. I love Big Pink. Ugh, I'm such a I, like, and part of it too. It's like partially a personal reason. Like I live down in South Louisiana, so all of like whenever we call it down the bayou. Whenever you go down the, my Cajun's about to come out. When you go down the bayou, which is like an hour south of like my hometown, everything, like when a hurricane comes in, like the storm surge gets super high, so all of the houses have to be on stilts. They all have to be like 18 feet up in the air. And I've had family live in a little town called Chauvin and like in Berg and a little place called Montague. And we've always like hunted and fished there. Like my family was always like outdoor sports people. So we've always had like a fishing camp, like a means to go down there and hang out. Those houses remind me of Big Pink. Like we don't ours are not vibrant or as tropical looking, right? They're a little bit more like utilitarian because we're only going down there for weekends at a time and all. But there is something about being in those houses up on stilts, and when a big storm blows in, as they do off the coast, it rattles and it moves, and you're like, oh, it's about to go down, but it doesn't. The sound of the water hitting underneath, that is a very unique sound. I mean, we don't have seashells and stuff like that, because we're more, it's like brackish water where the fresh and salt water kind of mix. But it is like, if I can imagine what Big Pink is like, and it's a really cool place, and it's also really sad because our coastline is like rapidly disappearing, and with every hurricane we get, we're like closer to losing this kind of land and stuff. But yeah, it's a really cool place, and it's like it's a setting that people don't know about. Like people don't think about those kinds of places. Like when I show friends who don't live here this place, they're like, "Why is it so high up?" And I'm like, "Because the water gets that high." So yeah, no, it's a really unique place. It's really special.
Oh my gosh, that's awesome. I love that you picked Big Pink too.
Yeah.
Sounds incredibly similar, minus the seashells.
Yeah.
Do you have a character from a Stephen King novel who you would like to see get their own spotlight? Much like a Holly Gibney experience, much like Danny Torrance in The Shining with his own sequel. Who would you give more screen time?
This is probably another hot take, and I don't know how people are going to feel about it, but I would love a prequel novel following Annie Wilkes because we don't get a lot of, like I loved Rose the Hat and how awful she was. I think King can write a really good female character who is not necessarily emotionally or mentally stable and is a little, off center. So I would love, obviously we get a dose of that in Misery whenever, he finds a scrapbook and he pieces together Annie's crimes and her life. But I would just love to know more about how she got to where she was and how she got away with it for so long. She intrigues me psychologically. And like, it's really funny because she's really never wrong. She just takes it too far. Like, the things that she believes are not necessarily terrible. She just cannot control herself. Zero, she has zero restraint. So she's a very fascinating character to me, and I would love to see like what she was like as a teenager. Like what the hell is Annie looks like as a teenager? You know what I mean?
Ooh, I'm scared of that. I like
Yeah,
it.
exactly. Yeah, exactly. It would probably be very terrifying. But I think that the depths of her cruelty don't really know an end because again, if she thinks that's her truth and nothing's gonna really stop her, it doesn't seem. So, yeah.
I love that so much. And you reminded me of one of my favorite scenes with Annie Wilkes. Well, thankfully, she's not exactly in the scene because she terrifies me. Like, she
Oh, yeah.
absolutely terrifies me. So she's actually not in the scene, but it's one of the times when Paul breaks out of the room and he's looking around the house and he notices that everything is covered in like sticky candy and dripping ice
Yeah.
cream and frosting and sugar. And so she's definitely had some sort of binge eating episode with sweets. And I love this so much because it's such a character building block into her psyche. And I know that she's an overweight character, but I really, really want to know more about if sugar is a comfort for her, that binge eating episode. So I would love to know more about that because it's one of my favorite moments when he's just looking around the house and he's like, what is all this?
Yeah, it's like in a way I would almost like to know her regard to herself. And because like, we see her have these moments of cruelty towards herself whenever she has an outburst and like Paul is like, "No, stop," like he's like cuz he's freaked out about her own self-harm. But no, she's just it's so complicated with her because like she's fine one minute, she's not the next. There's with her being overweight, is that a product of her guilt being taken out? Like, is she like eating because she's like stressed, or is it feeding a certain other issue that she had in her life that we're not exposed to? I mean, we all know like King's opinion of overweight people is not the best, but I do feel like with Annie in particular, there is a reason for that, much like you said with that scene. Like, I don't feel like we'd have been given that exposition if it wasn't for a reason. No, she's such a kooky character that I just like want to unpack. I just want to know more, you know?
I love that. I think we've got three more, and then we're done.
Perfect.
Okay, which one? That's the question. Okay, this is about Stephen King endings. Do you have a favorite, or do you have an ending where you just felt super duper satisfied? Or do you have a Stephen King ending where you're like, I am upset. I don't feel that landed the way it should, and I wish different choices were made.
I mean, other than the Gunslinger, right? Like, we just kind of wish differently for the Gunslinger on the whole. People give the ending of it a lot of crap, and I really liked it. And same for like Buick 8. People, I think that they wanted more answers from Buick 8, and I don't think that that's a book that's meant to give you answers. The end of it, though, with, I don't necessarily, I have another hot take. I'm not a huge fan of, I don't love how Ben and Bev just like happily couple off. And then for Bill, he's just like, he's kind of been a little shit in the meantime while his wife is like not doing too hot. I kind of wish that Bev was the one on the bike having a moment of euphoria and happiness. Like that's the one thing I would change about the It ending. It would be Bev riding off and feeling the joy of freedom and like childhood and like all of this suffering that she's been through. That would just be so like chef's kiss to me. But I do like what King is saying with that ending. And I mean, I was ugly crying. Like I did not think that I would cry the way that I did whenever I finished that book. So that's like my big hot take on that ending. I don't think it's a terrible ending by any means. I know people like give it a lot of flack, but I think it's a good ending. I just wish that Bev would have gotten that treatment.
I'm so with you. I love that. I'm fine, like you said, with how it
Yeah.
ended. I'm fine. But when I look at Bev's total character journey, I'm a little concerned that she's just disappeared into another relationship.
Yeah, me too. And I say that, but like I adore Ben. Like, oh my God, I love Ben. And I think that he's a great character. And I love her and Ben together again. I know like you can't outrun your past relationship problems in another relationship. So I'm like, oh.
Right? Smart girls know this. Smart girls received the scars of life. We understand this.
Yes, very much so. So it's like I want them to be in game, but I'm like, the way that he wrote that is not in game material. So
Right? And even though I really like, well, I should rephrase that. I'm okay that Bill and Bev hook up because I think it was in this hybrid space of childhood and adulthood, and childhood is coming back around, cause a wheel, which you will learn later on.
yeah.
And I'm okay that they hook up. I mean, Bill's a cheater and it's not great, but I understand why King did that. But I really wish that Ben and Bev could have had that.
Me too. So me too. And like I would have screamed and you would never hear me shut up if Bev got the chance to look at Bill and be like, I was into you. I would have been like, oh, God bless she sees the light. Like,
Right?
you know what I mean? And again, I get it. The setup for the book is truly whenever you go home and you're immersed in these like old tendencies come back and your childhood crushes are your childhood crushes. But God, that would have been so liberating. Ugh. I would pray for that scene, but whatever.
I'm with you. This leads me into my next question about romantic attraction toward a King character. And it doesn't necessarily have to be like you are having squirrely feelings for a certain character, but did you get a little swoony by anyone in your reading experience?
Oh, definitely Ben. It was definitely Ben. And like it's weird to say that because like that is a childhood character we spend a lot of time with, but there is a certain innocence and goodness to Ben that stays with him into adulthood that like he just would not hurt anyone
Yeah.
with any malintent, that he's just so good and he's just so sweet to Bev and it's so I don't know, it just touches your heart to see his love for her. And so you can't help but love him whenever you meet him again as an adult and he still, is a good person. I think Ben's probably the best one. Like I said, I have my issues with Jake. I don't think Jake's that great. Definitely not Roland. Roland's a walking red flag. Run the other way. Run the other way right now.
I love this. I love this.
Yeah. Yeah, I'm trying to think of about it. Paul Sheldon is not great as well. He's pretty terrible.
No, Paul will get you killed. Paul is
Paul does not care.
fast and loose. Forget it.
Yeah, yeah. So those are the big ones that I'm like really come to mind. Of course, there's the boys from the stand. There's like everybody from the stand. And like Larry Underwood in particular, I really wrestled with him, but I kind of was just like, you know, that's great that he didn't, kind of the same with everybody else in the stand. I mean, they're fine, they're cool, but nobody like touched my heart like Ben touched my heart. Like Ben is he's such a sweetie.
He really is so good. A good young man and a good man. And
Yeah.
it's always nice to revisit somebody like that who you wholeheartedly trust, which
Yes.
is a rare thing.
Yes. Especially in the Stephen King universe. My God.
Absolutely. Yes, you're dead on about Roland being a walking red flag, though. Accurate. Very keen instincts, Anna. Um,
Oh man.
I know that you have a absolute dump truck of books to read, but if it comes up in your queue sooner rather than later, I would like to see how you feel about the character of Billy Summers.
I want to read it because my future sister-in-law, she bought Billy Summers as her first King book, and I'm like, girl, I don't know that you should start there. I mean, I haven't read it, but like, why don't we go start with Carrie? But I need to read it to like tell her whether or not that she should because she asked me because she knows how into it I am, and I'm like, I actually haven't read that one, so I don't know.
This is actually very interesting that it was her first King book because, with that in mind, I don't know if that would be such a bad thing. It's
Really,
so good, Anna. It is
really,
one that made such an impact on me because, of course, it starts out as a crime fiction thriller. He's an assassin, he's a hired gun, last job, the tropes in full swing.
yeah.
But then that takes you to like page 75. And
Oh
then
no.
the novel completely opens up to an homage on the creative process, to memory and coming of age and PTSD.
Oh yeah.
Oh my God, I fell in love with this man. So
I'm gonna have to bump it up my TBR then, because that sounds really, really interesting.
I was shooketh that the plot on the dust cover only took me to about a third of the way in. And then you
Yeah.
get this deeply moving emotional journey of this character who, wow, oh gosh, I was very moved and I have a giant crush on him, and the crush is still operating in full force. So I would love to know what you think about Billy Summers.
Yeah, nobody talks about it. Like nobody talks about Billy Summers a
Another
whole
one,
lot.
right?
Yeah,
Oh, shake my head, shake my
I
head.
know. Yeah, so I'm gonna bump that one up because, like I said, I have like people have asked me, and I'm like, yeah, I haven't read it. I don't know that I'd start there because like I don't even hear anything about it. Like I don't know what to tell you about it.
I approve. I approve of it being a first time king, though. I think that that would be okay.
Okay, good to know. Good to know.
This is our final question. Final. There is a chance that me and my chicken scratch scribblings, we could have missed one. But if we in fact did, we can retroactively. Well, I don't know if I asked your favorite Stephen King female.
No, we asked, and you said like up to five in what you sent me, and I have a small list, which I mean, I'm sure you can guess. Carrie is one of them. Bev is another one too, and Bev is
Yay!
one that complicated feelings about because it's like you just want a little bit better for her. I love Dana from The Stand. She's just so kick-ass, man. Like God, I love
Brave.
I hate that she went through such a traumatic journey until we meet her, and it's just kind of like side plot that we don't even, we somewhat explore it, but not as much as we do everything else. But she's just so like badass. Like I just love her so much. Annie Wilkes is another one that I find fascinating. It's not like I want to be her friend. It's not like I want to be her. I just want to understand. I want to understand her, and she's not someone you can understand. So that's the problem with her. And then after that, I'd have to go with Sadie from 11/22/63 because I do love Sadie. I she's another one that I kind of wanted a little bit better for because she's just like such a product of circumstance that I wish that she had a little bit more autonomy over what happened to her, with the way that King wrote that book, but she is a very charming and endearing character nonetheless.
Wonderful list, Anna. Oh my gosh. These are
Thank you.
some good ones. I really love, I don't know if I hear, well, I'm sure I've heard Sadie before, but I love how Sadie has that talismanic quality.
Yeah.
Like you mentioned, she's not as richly developed as I think some of the other ladies, and there's some missing autonomy there, but she is like this jeweled diamond floating in the text that we're always trying to preserve and protect and cherish. And I love that she exists in that space, in that novel, in that way.
Yeah. I love that she's always in every iteration in time. Like she's always Sadie. Sadie is the same. She's consistent. She's kind of goofy. She's kind of aloof, but she's very endearing, and she's very like honest for the most part. And like she's obviously been through some like really tough things and some really terrible things, and that kind of somewhat confines, I think, who she's allowed to be to Jake and the aggression that she can show towards him or not. But the fact that she didn't really take no for an answer and she ended up going with him anyway to go stop the shooting. That I loved her for that. And I was like, you go, sis. You know what? Don't let him tell you what to do. Just do it.
Oh, I love that so much. Very, very nice. Sadie is tremendous, and I really
Yes.
like your list. Well done. Okay.
Thank you.
Now we've reached our final question. Pardon. At least I think. No. Oh my God. I've screwed everything up. The last question. If you could get a King book signed, which King book would it be?
Yeah, it would have to be Duma or Carrie. It'd have to be one of
Yay!
those two. Because those are the ones that, like, oh, they just lodge like in my heart. Like I just think about them constantly. They don't really go away. I mean, of course, it'd be really cool to have like a sign like Dance Macabre and stuff because that, or like On Writing, because those are King reflecting on his work and like his, relationship with writing and stuff and horror in particular. But I think if we're going straight up fiction, it'd have to be Carrie or Duma.
Excellent choice. Excellent choices, plural.
Thank you.
All right, final question. Pardon. This is what happens when you write like a serial killer.
No, I'm the same way.
I got all screwed up, and I also think I am excited and happy, and so I get really discombobulated.
Oh no, I'm happy that you're excited and happy. It's a good problem.
It is a good problem. Final question for Miss Anna Dupree. What are your top 5 Stephen King titles, and what allows them to be in your top 5?
Okay. I mean, these change like probably every week. But for now, Carrie, I think is probably going to be always first and foremost, just because of how complicatedly female it is, and that just does a lot for me. Duma is number 2. There's something really, really special about that book, and like how it speaks to people who are into the arts and people who create and like living a vibrant life that's really complicated, even if you're sad or you're grieving or you're healing, and that really complicated journey. And it's a very transitional story, like Edgar Fremantle's life is in transition. He's leaving a life behind and discovering the next phase. And I don't know, it's a really, really cool story. It is probably going to be number 3, just because, I mean, that book is just incredible. I mean, it's long and yeah, it's got its problems and stuff, but I just don't think that anybody's ever pulled off anything close to it. I mean, it is in a category of its own in a way. 11/22/63. It's just a romance novel. It's not even horror. It's not even historical fiction. It's just a romance. Yeah, that book broke my heart. I mean, like I was like crying at work whenever I finished it on my lunch break. It was just so good. And then this is a hot take. I have my 5th pick as Doctor Sleep. That is a book that people don't really care for, and I totally get it. But I read The Shining in high school as my first King read, and I didn't really get it. And then in 2022, when I was like, okay, I'm gonna get back into reading horror, I had read Christine, I think, and then not long after, I was like, okay, I think I'm gonna pick up Doctor Sleep next. It's logical that I read the sequel to one of the things that I read last from him, which was The Shining, and I mean, it had been years. And getting to read about Danny Torrance as an adult, as I was an adult, and wrestling with his demons that he was presented in his childhood around like a similar time. I mean, like he's much older, I think, in the novel than I was, but oh, it was something very special to like revisit that character and his growth and like what he was like in wrestling with his past. Whenever I was like first experiencing like independence, it was around the same time like I bought my first house and like started my first big job that I was like reading Doctor Sleep. So yeah, it's a book that's got problems. It's a book that I know feels like it kind of cuts the menace short with the way the True Knot falls apart and all those things, but I really love just getting to revisit Danny and like getting somewhat of an answer for like what does this trauma look like for these characters however many years later it is. That's the thing that always sticks out to me above everything else.
Oh, a tremendous list. I really like that. And I think it's great. I've had people throw in some outlier King picks because there is an emotional connection there. And that's why we treasure these stories is King writes them and then they belong to the world and they belong to us. and
Yeah.
we find them at certain times in life. And for whatever reason, it fills in the cracks, and we have something to hold on to as the night closes in on us.
Yes.
I love this. I love that there's just a lot of personal warmth around all the choices.
Yeah, and it's not like, I love The Shining. I think it was great. And again, like I keep saying, I reread it. But like Salem's Lot, I think is a fantastic book. I don't know that because there is so much around that book, there is so much commentary and so much that it has to live up to. I think sometimes whenever you come into reading King later, it's a little difficult to parse out the book in front of you versus the book that you thought that you were going to read, which is like a reader problem. I really, really enjoyed it, but it wasn't what I thought it was going to be at all. So again, it's probably one that I should reread again sometime soon to see, hey, like how does this hold up? All of the initial King stuff, his early stuff is phenomenal. So it's not that I don't enjoy them or appreciate them, but they just didn't quite have that like personal tie to like stand out in my mind like some of these did.
I'm with you so much. I feel the exact same. I am excited for you to read The Dead Zone, though, because I do think that you will find a little oasis in the middle of the early 70s testosterone, adrenaline, the classic sort of his experimentation. And he's writing to pay the rent, and he's writing to
Yeah.
mimic style of other classic novels, which is all very admirable. And the stories are solid, they're fun, but you are correct. You are
Yeah.
correct. There are some missing elements in early 70s stuff for the most part, but there are some diamonds for sure.
Yeah. A lot of people have said that I'm going to love The Dead Zone. And so, like that, Cujo, I know is going to mess me up. I'm like putting off reading Cujo, but I know I need to read Cujo. Needful Things is another one that I feel like I'll probably really enjoy. I really want to get to like Rose Madder and what's the other one? Dolores Claiborne and Gerald's Game. Those three I feel like might end up being like my King Holy Trinity by the time that I'm done with them. I don't know. Time will tell. But I'm really interested to get to those.
Oh my gosh, I too have not yet read Cujo. I
Yeah.
have also not read Needful Things, so we have a very similar path. It's really intriguing, like the more similarities we discover about each other's King
I
journey.
know.
We're twinning. We are twinning so hard.
Yeah, we're operating on the same timeline, just like a few years behind, I think, or like a few months at this point now.
Absolutely, which I love. I am so excited for you to get to Rose Madder, Dolores, and Gerald's because I recently just finished them. I finished Gerald's Game a couple weeks ago, and
Yeah,
I'm in the middle of Dolores Claiborne right now, and I am blown away, Anna. I
really.
am blown away that these books exist in the King catalog. I cannot
Yeah.
believe it. Feels like I just found a treasure chest. It really does. It feels like you stumble upon all of this gold that went completely overshadowed. It is incredible. And the fact that Gerald's Game and Dolores Claiborne are these interconnected narratives,
Hmm.
which is fascinating. The two characters within have events that occur on the same day at the same time.
Yeah, I think I've like heard people it's the eclipse or whatever, right? Yeah.
Correct,
Yeah, yeah.
correct.
I'm excited to get to it.
Oh my God, I'm nerding out hard, hard. I am just blown away with what he's doing, what
Yeah.
he's exploring in these two stories, what he's exploring with trauma and healing and facing the trauma, and
Hmm.
what the eclipse means for one character who's 10 years old, and what it means for another character who's in her 30s and who's been dealt a very hard hand of cards, a
Yeah.
very challenging life, hard, cold island life, and how I am nerding out. Oh my God.
That's so awesome. This makes me so much more excited to get to them though. Like seeing you this excited makes me so much more excited.
And I'm losing it. I am losing it. So I did not mean to just
Oh no, no, go ahead because like I'm so excited to get to them and they seem to be more female centered stories from like the little that I know about them. So obviously excited for that, but to hear you have this much excitement is a good indicator for me based on like past reactions. So
I'm definitely freaking out. You know that feeling where you're reading something and you're like, "Oh my God, this is good." And it's getting better. Oh my God. Oh my
yeah.
God. Why is it so good? Why? I'm not prepared. Yeah, I am in a state of speechless awe right now. So I'm very excited to hear your thoughts. And I am also excited for you to experience them because I think you're going to be you're going to feel like I feel, which is like, I just found a chest of gold. Oh my God. Like, wow.
Perfect, perfect. That I'm very much looking forward to that then, especially coming off the Gunslinger. Sorry, I just keep throwing shade. I can't stop.
Girl, you come to the right place. What is it that they say in the South? If you don't have anything nice to say, come sit next to
Yeah.
me.
Yes, amazing. Perfect. Perfect.
This is a safe space for all hot takes and for any shade. I will happily accept and listen, and I will not judge. I am just here to listen. If there was disparaging remarks against some of my favorites, there would be a lot more silence.
Okay, good.
But for the most part, I'm with you, and I'm so sorry. I feel like do you know? Of course, everyone knows Tigger from Winnie the Pooh.
Oh yeah.
You know how he like catapult, dive bomb, barrel rolls on people? That's what I feel like I've done to you.
Oh my God, not in the slight. No. Listen, I reached out to you and we did our conversation first because I had listened to you and I was like, oh, she gets it. Like she probably feels the same as me. And then we talked and it was the same. So no, I am all for it. And like, don't get me wrong, I love my book friends, but like I don't have that many female friends reading King. Like a lot of my friends who are reading King are guys, which is great, and I love them for that. However, they just there's not that kind of like experience that you can, talk about some of these things. Or if they do pick up on it, they're like, well, what did you think about that? And I'm like, well, what's there to think about? That was really shitty. Or like, you know what I mean? Like, it doesn't need more than that. So no, it's always nice whenever you can find somebody of like the female persuasion who's like the female experience who gets what King is putting down and enjoys it the same way that I do.
I'm 100% with you. To quote Gen Z, it hits different.
No, it does.
Yeah, I feel like we are able to connect in a way and immediately understand, like, oh, we don't even need to go there because
Yeah, it's already understood.
correct. It doesn't even need to be verbalized. We could just eye sneer and you get it.
Probably.
'Tis the language of XX chromosomes, and we are here for it.
Absolutely.
All right, Miss Anna, that is all of the questions. I cannot thank you enough. It has been so tremendous getting to chat King with you. I have another segment that I call the Women of Stephen King that I would love to chat with you about coming up. I know you have some amazing females that you've already explored, and this is sort of going deeper with that.
Oh, yeah.
That might be something I bug you about later on here in the future.
Bug me anytime. Please,
Yeah.
please bug me anytime.
Love it. Before we go, can you let everybody out there listening know what you're up to in 2025 and where they can connect with Anna Rose Reads?
Yes, I am everywhere. So pretty much any variation of the username, like Anna Rose Reads, you should be able to find me. I think like on Instagram, it's Anna period Rose underscore reads, and I think it's Anna Rose Reads either all together or with underscores everywhere else. I'm on YouTube. I am on Apple Podcasts, Spotify. I have a Substack that I post a little bit more on in terms of like kind of like blogging and stuff, but I did just start reviewing for a website called Capes and Tights. They're a really cool place. We feature a lot of horror. We also do a lot of like graphic novels and comics and things like that. Also am a contributor to the lineup. So if you follow that website, that's kind of like a crime and horror fiction space. You can check that out. Yeah, I'm kind of just everywhere doing everything. I'm reading as much as I can, trying to review what I can. I've got some really cool author interviews lined up. I know that you're friends with Nat Cassidy. I have an interview with him coming out soon that I did like months ago, and I've been dying to share it. Like the fact that I've held on to it this long has just been killing me slowly because we talk about The Stand and that too. But even though we're promoting his book, we end up talking about The Stand, which is probably the most Nat Cassidy thing ever. So yeah, no, it's going to be another busy year. I'm actually also planning on going to StokerCon this year. I don't know if anybody else is planning on going to that, but I'm gonna take a risk and get on a plane and hope that it stays in the air and be there. So, yeah, I'm just gonna kind of keep doing my thing. I don't have anything like really, really big or special coming out. Just more reviews, more author interviews, more of the same, pretty much, and trying to pepper in a King here and there. You know, it keeps me going. I always rely on his reading for like a pick me up, so just keeps everything running smooth.
I love Nat too. I'm so excited for his new story, but
Me
he is
too.
the most delightful King person. So I'm so glad that you got to feel
Yeah.
the fire of his powerful King knowledge, because it is like an inferno of awesome.
He's better than like the King Wikipedia page.
Truly.
He is the King Wikipedia page. Like I wouldn't be surprised if he is behind like every website and information forum on the internet because he's just so knowledgeable on everything Stephen King. It is truly so impressive.
It is. He blows me away, and he's so glamorously articulate.
Oh yeah.
He's an actor and he's a Shakespeare expert, and he's just somebody who is so impressive. I adore this man.
And the thing that I think I love about him the most is like he's so accessible. Like he never makes you feel bad for like not having read whatever King. He's just, oh, I'm so excited you can get to it. Here's what you can look forward to, and like totally champions your reading experience. Like he does not make you feel bad at all whatsoever if you didn't know or you didn't, you know. He's not a mansplainer in the slightest. Like complete opposite, whatever the opposite of that is.
Nat is one of the people who I feel gives the greenest flag
Yeah.
to the constant reader community. Like he is just the poster child for where we should all aspire to in terms of warmth and inclusivity and reader knowledge.
Yes, I agree. Totally.
He is the bar I am trying to reach, and I'm so glad you've got to experience his loveliness.
Yes.
So I hope he listens. I'm going to tag him.
Okay, perfect.
I'm going to tag him and be like, "Dear Nat, there is a gush fest at the end.
Yeah, at the end, at minute, whatever it is, please listen. Thanks.
Love your friends, Anna and Kim."
Yeah, absolutely. And before we like sign off too, I want to shout you out because I listened to your Stan deep dive episode. And like, I can't imagine the amount of work that you did on those episodes because all of the biblical references that you unpacked were so impressive. And like, I had picked up on a few of them reading, but I didn't take the time to like sit there and like really sit with them or like look into them a whole lot further. And I was like, you were just rattling them off like nobody's business. Like you were there and you were ready, and it was so cool. And so I can't imagine the amount of work that went into those episodes. So just all the kudos to you for spending the amount of time that you did on that book and like the extras. It wasn't even just the stand, it was everything else too.
Oh my God, Anna, thank you so much. I so appreciate you listening. And I'm so glad that it came across okay, because you are correct. Toward the end, I was like, this episode might kill me. But I'm so glad it's coming across well. And it was a labor of love, but it's such a special book. I wanted to work really hard on it.
Oh yeah. Well, I mean, it covers so much. Like it's so hard to you can't succinctly talk about the stand like without going off on all of these different tangents and like this means this and this is symbolic of this. I mean, there's no way that you can get through it thoroughly without doing that, in my opinion. So I feel like you did the book service by giving it that space.
Oh my God, that means so much to me. Thank you so much. Because I was very nervous. You put it out there and you're like, welp, this could be a garbage fire, but I tried. So I'm glad.
I get the feeling so much. I totally relate, but no, I loved it. It was great.
Thank you so much for listening. I appreciate you so much. We will have you back soon. Thank you, Anna. Take care. And I will be listening to Anna Rose Reads. And I know everybody out there will as well.
Thank you so much, Kim. This has been an absolute delight.
That will do it, ladies and gentlemen. That is a wrap. Isn't Anna so wonderful? Like totally and completely wonderful. The answer is yes. Yes, she is. Thank you so much, Anna, for being such an incredible guest. Please make sure you're following her show, Anna Rose Reads, as well as all of her other writing outlets she spoke of. I believe you can find all her links on her Instagram and YouTube channel, so please head in that direction now. I was a guest on Anna's podcast a few months back, and boy, did we have a grand old time. The best time was had, my guys. One of those times where the hour flies by and you're still laughing and carrying on in your own bubble of Stephen King fiction fun. It's one of my favorite places to be, and Anna Dupree can take you there pretty quickly. Well, lovies, as they say in the South, I'm as full as a tick. And as they say in the Southwest, it's about time I hit the dusty trail. So say hi to your mama and them for me as I have to get back to work. Coming up on the podcast, we have an extra special surprise return guest who is going to assist me on one of my favorite topics, the women of Stephen King. For regular listeners of the show, you know it's been a good long while since we've revisited this show segment. It has been some time has passed. And over the years, a few guests have really provided some amazing answers. And you all know the women of Stephen King is a subject I'm very passionate about. It's very near and dear to my heart. And this guest, guys, my laws, everybody, this guest and where they go with this particular topic, get ready to fly out of this atmosphere, my dudes. It is so amazing. Breathtaking, actually. I can't wait to share it with you. That episode is coming up soon, followed by, hopefully, some Gerald's Game Dolores Claiborne content sandwiched together. I am determined to do a dual episode by Hell or High Water, but I think I might need to make some space for the brand new King novel featuring Holly Gibney, Never Flinch. Never Flinch is slotted for release worldwide, I believe, at the end of May 2025. And I'm going to be reading it straight away with my Stephen King book club in June 2025. So I'd like to throw some thoughts out there on the newest novel, Never Flinch, as soon as I'm able to. So please get your hands on a copy and please read along with me so we can enjoy the episode together. That's all I have for now, dear ones. If you would like to kindly support the show, please head over to my Patreon, The Dance Macabre with Kim C, at patreon.com/dancewithkimc. That's dance with an S, where for the bargain price of $2.22 US, you can hear additional episodes on Stephen King short fiction, Stephen King film and television adaptations, additional Stephen King interviews, and of course, more content on the women of Stephen King. You can also say hi to the show at UnderratedSK@gmail.com, as I am always happy to chat with King fans about anything and everything King. That's all for now, sweet people. I hope everyone is doing well. Thank you all very much for listening. Take care, and bye-bye.